Hello there, and welcome to the CP7 podcast. My name's Palm.
And I'm Andy.
And together we are Chrono Passion 7. Hello, and welcome to your favourite watch-related podcast. Today we have a very special guest. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome Rikki from Scottish Watches onto the show. Welcome, Rikki. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's been a while since we chatted properly like this. First time being on the show. But I have listened in the past, and I've listened to all 6 of your previous episodes, so CP7 is going to be a good one.
All 6?
Wow.
You've only listened to 6, you mean?
The first 6.
Yeah, 6.
You didn't get the joke. CP7?
Oh,
CP1,
got you,
2,
got
3.
you.
Oh, come on. Got to keep up.
Okay.
Being slow.
Well, yeah. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.
See you on the next
Later.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So, first thing we're going to do, and as you are our guest of honor today, Rikki, we're going to do a quick wristwatch check. So, Rikki, what have you got on the wrist there?
See, this is all back to front because it's usually me that says this. It's me that has to remember to ask these questions of guests on my show. But you've picked a really good day to record. Well, you've not actually, because it was supposed to be tomorrow, and then I moved it because something changed at the last minute, and I got a call to go and actually deal with some businessy stuff. So we're recording this show on the day of launch of our newest collaboration watch, and that is in association with Formex. We've been speaking to those guys over there for so long, never done a limited edition watch, although we did talk about it. So 2 years down the line, here we are today, and the name of the watch is called Skye. It is based on the Isle of Skye, top end, sort of the Highland area of Scotland, although it's not completely at the most northerly point. But the watch is based around loom technology, ultraviolet secrets, and the Northern Lights. So that's the watch I'm wearing today. By the time this episode comes out, I don't know if there'll be any left, because the last limited we did, it sold out in about 10 hours, 100 pieces gone in 10 hours. This one's a little bit more expensive, so I don't expect it to be like that, but you can just never tell. But the watch itself, it's based on the Formex Essence 39. It has got an aventurine dial, but it's also got a couple of party pieces in there. You've got a different coloured loom running from the 3 to the 9, but above that, as you would see if you looked at the Northern Lights in the sky, we have got green loom running from the 10 until the 2 position. And if you put a UV torch on the front of it, which is included when you actually buy the watch so people can play with it, you will see little stars illuminated, a little bit of a secret. And then if you flip it around, it's got a clear case back, but again, there is a party piece on there. If you use the UV torch, you will see a drawing supplied by one of our listeners of one of the castles up in Skye called Dunvegan Castle. So that is the watch I am wearing today, although I have actually popped it on a different strap. It's riding on the wrong ill-fitted 21mm deluxe strap, although this is actually a 20mm lug diameter width. You can tell I've had no caffeine and no sleep today, editing videos and getting ready for lunch.
It's one of those days today. It is one of those days today.
It certainly is. I'm trying my best to kind of keep it compos mentis, but that's what I'm wearing today. This is one of the collaboration watches we've done. We talked before we hit record. There have been a number in the past, over the past few years, but this is the latest, the greatest, and I think this is the one that's got the most technology in it. So that's my wrist check done for today.
Nice one.
Brilliant.
And Andy, even though Andy was, I'm telling you, it's one of those days, Andy was actually supposed to ask what you've got on your wrist, but anyway, it's one of those, like I said, it's one of those shows. Yeah, everything's going wrong today. I don't know why. It may be something's
in the air. Yeah.
So, Andy, what have you got on your wrist then? Go on.
Well, speaking of chaotic watches, this one's got a story. So I'm wearing the Atelier One Perception, and the story is that Palm actually sent this watch to me after doing a test drive himself 2 months ago, and it was stuck in customs for 2 months in Madrid, and finally it's got here to me today in Barcelona. I went to the post office this morning to collect it. They said it wasn't available. Got to the office, got a notification 8 minutes after I left saying, please come back and collect it. So I've been all over the shop today. But was it worth a 2-month wait? Absolutely. That hand-turned guilloche dial is mesmerizing. I am super, super impressed. For the price point, the level of detail, the finishing, it's a winner for now. But it's day one, honeymoon period. Let's see how it goes in the upcoming weeks. But Pam, what did you choose for today's show?
Well, I'm not interested in what he's got to say. I'm more interested in what you've just showed to the camera there, because I got to have a look at that. And I actually think I got to have a look at the guy that does the hand turning on the machine. because
we
he
met
was
him,
over in
yeah.
Geneva when you guys were over at Watches and Wonders a few months ago. And you know how you read a spec sheet and you think, yeah, right, show me the proof. Well, obviously with our watch, we've got the video to prove where it was all made. But most people stamp dials, even like Audemars Piguet, some of their guilloche dials, they're just stamped. They look good, but there isn't that personal touch. And they actually had that master guy with the machinery in Beau Rivage showcasing what he was doing. So it was incredible to see. And like I said, the price point's just insane.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
I had the watch for about a month, Master Zen. I've been told how to say it properly as well by a listener and someone you know well as well, Ricky. Yeah, Master Zen.
Hopefully
he showed
not
us...
Dave.
No, I don't think he'd be able to correct my Mandarin.
You could give it a shot.
Well, who knows?
Give him a few drinks, yeah. Right, okay, so should I just forget mine? Anyway, this is a really quick one. This is a really quick one. So this is a Explorer 214270 39mm. It survived Explorer January when I wore it the whole month, and I've not worn it much since, but that's what I've got on my wrist. Ricky, as you're new to the show, I'm sure everyone already knows this story, but just let us know how you got involved with watches, because you've been involved in quite a few other things which are completely unrelated to watches, and how now you've got to where you are in the watch community and watch world.
Oh, origin story time. And I've not even been to see the new Wolverine yet. Oh, where did it start from me? Well, it didn't start with a grandfather. I would say it probably accidentally started with my folks getting a watch when I was a kid. And I remember I was on a family vacation, a holiday in Scotland, and I saw a calculator watch in the window of a shop when I was God knows how young. And because I was a little bit of an arsehole when I was young, more so now, but back then I was a bit dodgy, I thought to myself, that could probably help me if I was in school and I was trying to do some kind of maths work, because I don't really want to use my brain if I don't need to. So I got that for my birthday. Then, probably in later years, I got one of the Iron Men, I got a Casio G-Shock, I got a few bits and bobs, and then I got a phone. So, kind of forgot about watches, didn't really care about it until a little bit later on in life when I had that thing where a guy has got the house, he's got the car, he's got the motorbike, and he goes, what am I going to waste my money on next? I don't have a good watch. And I'd remembered my dad back in the day when we were a kid, well, when I was a kid and he wasn't, obviously, and we'd sit down at Christmas and we'd watch movies and James Bond would come on, Dr. No, and he would point at Sean Connery's wrist and say, a Rolex, now there's a good watch. Couldn't afford one. I couldn't afford one, definitely, being a young child. He couldn't afford one, but it stuck with me. He obviously passed away a number of years ago. And when I had a bit of spare cash, I thought, you know what? I'm going to get myself a nice watch because I don't have one. Went and bought one and thought that's the end of it. You know, tick. On to the next. As luck would have it or not have it, the watch that I bought was faulty. Got it second hand from a local AD that did pre-owned stuff, and it was a 1999 Rolex GMT Master 2, and it was running maybe about a minute fast a day. So over 2 days, I thought something's not quite right here. So I had an option. I could take it straight back, or I could go on the internet and find out what is going on. So that's what I did. Googled what could be the problem here, found the Rolex forum, went on there, registered, started reading stuff, figured out immediately what was wrong. It was either magnetised and deregulated. But I started reading more and more, learned more and more about the history of Rolex. Then it went into different sub-forums there, learned more and more stuff elsewhere. A couple of days later, returned the watch. And I just thought, you know what, I'll just get my money back. And if I want to get another watch from somewhere, I'll get it from somewhere else. But in the back of my mind, a new hobby had started to grow and fester, a bit like a potato in a corner somewhere. It was just starting to sprout. And I kept going back to the forum. And then I found Tim Mosso's videos. I think it was What You Want back in the day on YouTube. I found some Archie luxury stuff that we won't really go into at the moment. And then I bought another watch. And yeah, it kind of went from there. Fast forward 3 months, I'd booked a plane ticket and a show entry ticket to Baselworld 2017. So from January the 2nd to March the 7th, there or thereabouts, in those small amount of months, I just grew this hobby, built it up in my head, went to Baselworld, and I've said this a million times before, don't want to bore people, but the change for me was walking through the entry point into Baselworld in its centenary year. The doors opened and I looked in and I saw Bulgari, Tag, Hublot, Zenith, Rolex, Patek, Swatch Group, just everybody in front of me. And I thought, what the hell is this? It's like walking into your first football match your first rock concert, your first rave, your first Comic-Con, whatever it is you're into. Imagine the first time that you got to do or see the thing that you love. That's what happened to me. And it just went from there. I became an avid fan, started collecting, bought like a 1967 Bulova Accutron Space View 214, got that on eBay for around about £800. I'd always liked that. That was another watch I'd seen when I was a kid. Bought a Tudor Fast Rider Black Shield ceramic, got that really inexpensively from the same AD that I got my Keep Rolex, which was a Batman that I picked up a couple of months after the first knackered one. And then a couple of years later, I can't remember how it all started. I remember thinking I'd like to tell my story on a podcast. And this is when watch podcasts were brand new. We're talking 2018. And there was a local one in Scotland, a couple of guys up to no good, started causing trouble in the neighbourhood. They were doing this watch podcast thing. And I got in touch with them and I said, I'd love to come on as a guest because you've got guests. I'm a nobody, but I've been to SIHH now. I've been to Baselworld twice. I could tell a story as a guy off the street who just loves watches and wants to go to events. I could tell people how easy it is because in Scotland, probably quite similar where you guys are, EasyJet was about £59 for a return flight from Edinburgh to Geneva Airport. You would get out, you'd walk half a mile to Pal Expo from the airport, you guys know this, do the show in a day, walk back, there's no taxis involved, no trains, and then jump on a plane. So you can do a day trip. It's easier getting from Scotland to Geneva than it is from getting from Scotland to London and back. So I wanted to come on and tell people this. And I get snubbed. They just weren't interested at all. And I thought, oh, that's a little bit shit, but fair enough, okay. Then I happened to find out about Red Bar. And I went along to that, met a few people there. This is where I ended up meeting or re-meeting Dave Sharp, my co-host in Scottish Watches. And I realised there was other people that were just as fanatical about watches as I was. The idea kind of brewed, had a couple of thoughts about it. Finally launched the Watch Podcast January 2019. And it was the week before SIHH 2019. So baptism of fire, decided going to need to do 2 shows a week to try and cover all these new releases.
You did 2 shows a week from the off.
Yeah.
I started listening to you, I think, in 2020, mid-2020 lockdown, really. So 2 a week from the beginning. That's hard graft, shall we say.
We need to do that now, Pam.
Yeah.
It's
too
one
late
of those things that if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't be doing it. But because I started it, and I started to get a buzz because my background, as you rightly mentioned, I've done a million and one things in my life. Started out in computers as a tech, moved into web design and programming. I was DJing in nightclubs at the weekends, did wedding photography, videography, moved into audio-visual stuff later on. And that kind of all came crashing down as soon as the pandemic happened. Wedding photographers were not working during the pandemic. But the podcast is something where instead of me being behind the camera or behind the lens or the microphone, I ended up on the other side. And it was a bit daunting, as you guys are probably well aware, recording your first show. How do I sound? Am I saying and ah and you know and like and all these little filler words that you have to program out yourself? You have to speak slower. You have to enunciate. I'm Scottish. Most people can't understand me at the best of times. So I really have to go the extra mile in the distance so people can hopefully comprehend what I'm trying to put out there. But doing the podcast twice a week, it was a hobby. I was working for myself, so I did have that time available just to mess around with it all. And it started to get traction. Early 2019, we got coverage, I think it was in the New York Times. The guys at Dubai Watch Week did a feature immediately within like 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
And when we were asking people who were getting in touch about the podcast, why are you listening to it? The majority seemed to be in America. And our stats bear that to be true to this day. We've got 38% UK, 39% America, and then it's Australia, Canada, Germany, Switzerland. It gets into single digits quite quickly. But the Americans really liked it. They liked Scotland. They liked the Scottish accent when they could understand it. And we kind of pieced together that a lot of Americans, either true or false, there's some kind of connection. They've got ancestors from Scotland that emigrated back in the day to Canada, to the States, and they all think they've got some kind of castle somewhere in the Highlands that is associated with them, so they listen. And it was good, and it also meant that we accidentally got in through the back door, because the likes of A Blog to Watch and Hodinky and all these other folks, they were quite happy to talk about us because it was just a couple of Scottish dickheads from the land of kilts and haggis. And we kind of, a little bit like the turtle and the hare, we kind of caught up. And before you know it, we had 2 episodes a week. We had a back catalogue building. We were working with Adrian at Bark and Jack within a few months. Jodie at Just One More Watch was on the show. And all these guys were kind of pitching in and helping. And during the pandemic, that's when things really went through the roof. A lot of people launched Watch podcasts. A lot of people launched things in Clubhouse, I think it was called, which is obviously well gone now.
Yeah, I remember that. You had to be invited
Yeah,
to
it
that,
was-
right? You couldn't just go on it. You needed to.
And it
Yeah,
was
that's it,
iPhone only, and then they brought out the
Yeah.
Android one, and people were saying it's the death of podcasts, and I knew fine well it wasn't, because podcasts have been going since like 2002. But ours grew and grew. We get more opportunities within, 2020, we did our first collaboration watch, and that was with Swatch. You can't really go higher for your first watch, and it was a success. It did really well with that one. We didn't make a penny from it because we thought, with the pandemic, with people losing their lives, their careers, their family, their livelihood, we wanted to do something that people wanted to celebrate watches, then they could just get something inexpensive. And it just went from there. We started going to events, met up with you at various things. I think London Watch Show, perhaps,
London Watch Show,
way
yeah.
back in the day. Briefly saw you guys, as I say, in Geneva this year, but it was like ships passing because you guys were busy.
That was
We were-
quite funny, actually. Yeah, it's just like, phew.
It was just a wave, a nod, and we'll
Yeah.
catch you later. And it never happens because we had 45 appointments this year over 3.5 days. You guys must have been the same. So you know what it's like. But yeah, the podcast has kind of grown from there. We kept away from YouTube for as long as we possibly could, but we launched, I think it was a year ago, last June. Finally, we went onto YouTube, and doing an audio podcast is hard work, especially twice a week, putting out 2 hours of content. But doing a video version of the same thing, you are just constantly editing. Thankfully, I've got a guy now that does all that crazy work for me. That's
Oh, you've
Gavin.
got a video
and-
guy, right?
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, he's brilliant. So we literally rock up. We use the same setup you guys are using just now to record. We send the files to him. And thankfully, he's on the same level as us. He's got a really juvenile sense of humour. Dick and fart jokes are plenty. And he comes up with great ideas and memes and things and drops them on the top of the YouTube video. So guaranteed at least once a week, there is a YouTube version of one of our podcasts. And that is it. Is that long enough answer? Have we finished the show yet? Can we go home?
Yep,
Get food?
and we'll see you in
That's
the
it,
next
yeah.
one. Yeah.
I think from my side is great introduction, but then understanding really what is it what keeps drawing you back to watches. Like, I know we get this excitement to do something, so do the professional podcasts, and also from a collector's side as well. But what is it about watches? What just keeps us hooked, do you think? And what is it for you? Is it the mechanical side, the mechanisms, the horology side? Is it the design? Like, what is it? What keeps you obsessed with the hobby?
I don't have a honest answer for that because I think it's a combination. And it can be anything. If there's a brand that I've never heard of, and it could be just a brand name slapped on an AliExpress watch that's sitting in a jeweler's window in Madrid, and I've never seen that dial design, I've never seen that handset, those numerals mixed with that kind of case shape, I'll be interested. And when I go on day trips, weekend breaks, or go away with the fiance, I will stop and stare in windows and look at garbage if it's a watch. It doesn't really seem to matter. And this is what now, nearly 7 years down the road of doing the podcast, where you think,
Yeah.
okay, I'd be bored by now, but I'm not. And I don't understand why, because in most things in life, you get to a certain point where it's like, how many Lamborghinis do you need to see driving past? I don't care anymore. With watches, it just doesn't change. And I was in TK Maxx, which I believe is called TJ Maxx over in the States, kind of
Yeah.
a jumble sale. They get end of line things, seconds and whatnot, and they've got a watch department. And I go in there just to see what there is. I picked up an Ingersoll. It's actually sitting on the desk here just now. And I got this for like 130 quid. And I only bought it because it was a
Okay.
curiosity. And I thought, you know what? I can talk about this on the podcast if I want. So this is an automatic with a skeletonized dial and back, full stainless steel, exhibition case back. And as I say, it's 130 quid. Looks a little bit like a Christopher Ward 12X, but they
That's
don't want me to
really
say that.
good.
So
Looks
Yeah,
great.
you're right, yeah.
I'm not going to say that. But yeah, an inexpensive watch from a brand that I'd heard the name of. Perhaps it's maybe been sold off in the past, and it's just one of those, slap a name of a watch on a watch from an inexpensive place. But yeah, constantly. And the fact with the podcast itself, I get the opportunity to speak to brands about their latest thing. And in watches versus any other industry that I've been involved in, if you're dealing with a car maker, you're not speaking to the designer. You're not speaking to the founder. You're not speaking to the guy that actually gets his hands dirty and puts it together. In the music industry, you're dealing with agents, you're dealing with PR agencies, you're not dealing with the artist, the person usually who's putting it all together. So with watches, it's very easy to get the CEO on the phone. Like, we speak with most folks. Edward from Moser's probably the one that sticks to mind mostly because he's a bit, again, like us guys, he's got a sense of humour. And he injects that into the Swiss watch industry that's been going for hundreds of years. And it's all stiff upper lip and suited and booted. He ain't like that.
Yeah.
And then you've got Matthew, who's the MD of UN. You've got Mike France down south at Christopher Ward. These are guys that are multi-millionaires at the top of their game, running the best companies in the world. But they chat to us. They love watches. And that is something that just doesn't seem to die off. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm still so excited every day to open my email. As soon as I open my eyes, I don't go on Instagram or TikTok. I check my email to see what press releases of new cool watches have come out in the last 24 hours.
Great answer. I think it's the magic of the industry, and it's something I think we're realizing as we're just beginning our journey. It's as much for people as it is for brands and the watches, right? It's the people behind the pieces and the brands as well. It's just absolutely
The way
fascinating.
I like to say it is, this is a vessel. This is a diary. This is a something that you imprint. I've read it and I've heard it 1,000 times from people. The watch you wore when you were married, the watch you wore when your son or your daughter was born, that is imprinted. And guys don't have much in the way of that. We don't have cool handbags. We don't have really cool shoes. We don't have cool necklaces. It's just
Speak for
something
yourself,
that is
yeah.
really cool. Well, I mean, Dave's got a nice pearl necklace, but I gave him that for Christmas last year. It's something that we can attach memories and things to in our mind. And back when I was a kid, my grandparents would say, tie a knot in a handkerchief to remember something. I just have to look at a watch and then I remember, oh, I was wearing that when such and such happened. I remember the watch that I wore on the first date when I met my fiance, and it was my Mad 1 Red. And I actually took my fiance to her first trip to Geneva last year, to Geneva Watch Days. And we met Max Busser because I had an appointment with him. So I got to introduce my fiance to the guy who put together the watch that I wore on our first date.
Full
I
circle.
got an introduction to the brand there. Yeah, blimey.
Yeah.
So Geneva Watch Days, I assume you'll be there. We'll be there also. Yep. You mentioned Basel World. So we weren't fortunate enough to actually be doing this when Basel World was on. Watches and Wonders is, and we count our blessings every day that we get invited to that. But what's the difference between Basel World, apart from Swatch Group being there as well? What was the difference between Basel World and Watches and Wonders from your perspective?
How do I explain this one? If you walk into Watches and Wonders and you position yourself in the area, in the atrium, in front of Rolex, so you have Rolex to your left, you've got Patek to your right. If you stand there and look forward, you could be at Basel World a number of years ago. The way they have managed to lay things out at that point, it is identical. It literally is. I mean, you could take a picture of one and the other and overlay them and it would look the same. That is scary how they've done that. But the difference is obviously it's different geographic location. I can't remember the name of the centre, but it's in Basel. It's got a specific name, and it was an exhibition centre that they use for like art fairs and various other things. Basel World was bigger. It was a combination jewellery and watch show. The year I went, which was 2017, was its centenary, and obviously I managed to go, and the last time it was any good, it started to drop off a cliff the next couple of years, but I believe it was between 15 to 1,700 exhibitors. That's a combo. Watches, jewellery, gem setting. But you could walk freely. I walked into the jewellery area, and I don't care about jewellery at all, but I saw things I was thinking, wow, if I had a balaclava, I'd be making money here. But then the watch area, they had all these really cool brands, and it was ones, I keep saying this in the show, it was brands I didn't know exist. When I got my first Rolex, I didn't realise that Rolex made more than one car. It's like saying a Tesla, well, they make one Tesla and then suddenly they bring out more. It was only when I got the watch I realised there was more to it. And it's a bit of that curve, the bell curve, where you think you know lots of stuff, then you realise you know nothing. And then you start to learn again as you come through the other side. Like Carl F. Bucherer, they were there at Basel World, never heard of them, had no clue who they were. They had a fantastic display. Blancpain were there. They had somebody doing engine turning and engraving on a machine, didn't know who they were. Then you obviously had Chanel and Dior, which I'd heard of from the high street. So Basel World was, for me, a learning curve. Plus, there were brands there that you didn't see or you don't see when you go to Watches and Wonders. Watches and Wonders predominantly is a group of brands that work together, and then they've got some outliers. They've got like Bremont. This year they had Norcane and some of the
Yeah.
smaller players, but Baselworld was just bigger, and it was a festival because you come out of Baselworld itself, the event, and you had pubs and bars and little hotels and hallways and all the rest of it around about. It was almost like the Fringe in Edinburgh. You've got the Edinburgh Festival, you've got the Fringe. Baselworld had been going for 100 years. People knew it, people travelled to it, and it was really good. The last event would have been 2019, and Zenith were launching their Inventor, and they had the high frequency party, and it was just insane, crazy stuff. Watches and Wonders, I'm not poo-pooing it. It is really good. It is very well put together. But PAL Expo is a conference centre, kind of out of the way, beside the airport. But I totally recommend anybody that wants to check out a show, that's one to go to. The public days are fantastic. One thing I do tell people is treat it like a car show. You're not going to try on watches. Just like you go to a car show, you're not taking the new Ferrari for a spin round the car park. You might get a chance to have a look in a window, you might get a chance to look through the windows of a car, but when you go, you're not going to try on the new Rolex. You're going to see them, which you usually don't see the new Daytonas and stuff. You will see them, but the chances are you won't get the opportunity to try them, because if there's 20,000 people and everyone wants to spend a minute trying on a watch, that's 20,000 minutes. There just ain't enough time in the day.
Boswell does sound quite. It's a shame we missed out on that one.
I'm
but,
disappointed. I was just going to say I'm disappointed we missed that. It sounds like a dream, to be honest.
I remember walking in Watches and Wonders for the first time, which was this year, and it was quite calm when we walked in, and I just thought, okay, this is really subdued. But all of a sudden, I don't know why, you just stand there. And I think once you've absorbed everything that's going on, because there's a lot going on that you don't really, your senses don't really pick up on, you just think, whoa, you just have to stop and think. 1 minute I just walked in and it was just all nice, and like you say, walking around a conference center, a big conference, and then next thing you know, it's just everything's there. It's just boom, watch brand, the biggest, well, most of the biggest, and a lot of the best. It'd have been so interesting to see what Baselworld was like, actually, if it's a different experience on top of what this is.
No, I would say it would be kind of the same. I'll go back to my earlier comment. If your first experience of going to a music concert, and you love music, is going to see a local band and it's like the sweat's hitting the ceiling, it's dripping on you, you're having a great time, that's fantastic. You've had a really good experience of something you love. That probably does not compare to Woodstock, but it's still fantastic. So if people want to go at their first watch event, don't feel sad that you missed Baselworld, because I'm sure there was something probably better a few hundred years ago at the World's Fair, one of the expos, back in France or whatever. But Watching Wonders is really good. And as you say, you're walking around. What hit me with Baselworld, which could transpose onto Watching Wonders Geneva Watch Days, is the fact that you see your horological heroes walking around in public without bodyguards. So the first year I went, I saw Cara from Hodinkee, and I just stood there and I was like, holy shit. And I saw Ariel Adams from A Blog to Watch, and I was like, oh my God, these are people who I read their stuff. I've seen them on YouTube. They're walking around, and then thankfully, as we've kind of grown together over the past few years, Adrian from Bark and Jack, he was at Baselworld 2019. Yeah, it was a few months after we launched the podcast, and he wanted to meet up, and I was completely starstruck because this is another guy who I watched on YouTube, and now we're good mates. He moved up to Scotland, not because I stay here, but other reasons. We collaborate. He's a guest on the show. Also, the watch industry, or more so the watch community, people get on with each other. There is very rarely that people are at odds or they lock heads together. Even the CEOs, look at the amount of collaboration. You don't get Ford and Fiat or Vauxhall working on a car together, but you've got MB&F and you've got Moser, or you've got Bulgari and MB&F, or you've got some artist somewhere and Hublot. Everybody kind of gets on, they share technology, and the big secrets are, behind the scenes, they buy the stuff from the same places.
Okay. So they've got that common. They see each other more than you would think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, even the competing big houses like your Richemont, LVMH, and Swatch Group, they all know each other. They all are friendly with each other. I think because the industry is so many hundreds of years old, they've got to work together to get through depressions, pandemics, and all kinds of stuff. I'm just waiting for the alien invasion when all that info gets released by the US government. You know what it's like. But yeah, it's a really good industry. The community is fantastic. I've been involved in the car scene, the music scene, and now the watch scene. And it is the amount of antagonistic folks into cars. You would think people that modify cars, performance tuning, etc., etc., they like things. They hate each other. I've got a better car than you. Mine's quicker than you. You're lying about your figures. The music industry is cutthroat. DJs would just rip each other off and steal gigs from each other. The watch community, the watch industry, I love it. It's fantastic.
More of a mutual respect. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right what you're saying, that it's a scene which you wouldn't expect. Anyone outside of the hobby would not know it is an actual scene. There are rock stars. There's, like you say,
there's you guys.
Max Moser. Well, apart from us guys. But like you see Max Moser walking past. He could walk past many people who wouldn't know who he was, and nothing but a watch person would just fall at their knees, his feet, basically, wouldn't they? It's just incredible. Like I saw Ben Clymer at Watches and Wonders. He did have an entourage. He had about 6 people around him. It does dawn upon you, like anywhere else, if I was with different people and I was just going about normal everyday life, this would mean nothing to them. But to me, I'm thinking, there's Ben Clymer there. There's Rikki and Dave from Scottish Watches. Yeah, there's real celebs here. So
the people who
there's a difference. But there's a difference. And the difference is influencers, and it's a horrible term and I don't like it, but that's what they call people that do media that get traction. And within the watch scene, there are very few people who are influencers or have done really, really well that are dickheads. Whereas if you look at the music scene, even local DJs that have got a small following, they act as if, they're Eyeball Paul from Kevin and Perry. You look at not watch YouTubers, you look at car YouTubers, and they have a chip in their shoulder. There's very few of them that I've met, and obviously we now run in similar circles. There's very few of them that I like, because most of them are just pretentious. I remember meeting Shmee150 for the first time, and he came on the show, and he was the most down-to-earth, lovely guy. But most of the other ones, they've got a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, a McLaren, and they think they're somebody. You don't get that in the watch industry. I remember bumping into Teddy Baldessar a couple of years ago at one of the events, and he was one of the nicest guys ever. Christian from Theo and Harris, one of the OGs, fantastic guy, came over, had a chat, got some selfies. Nothing was too little trouble or too much trouble. They were just really, really nice guys, and they were busy because, as you say, people wanted to speak to them, people wanted to chat about their watches. Even meeting Tim Mosso, who is my ultimate hero when it comes to watches, him and Jean-Claude Biver. Very thankful that was episode 100 and episode 200 guests. Just fantastic meeting them. And again, last year I was at Dubai Watch Week and bumped into both of them. Again, had a chat with them, and you don't get that access. Jean-Claude Biver, if he was the guy he is in the watch industry, in the car industry, in the tech industry, you would be able to walk up to Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or Larry Ellison or whoever it is and have that same kind of one-to-one relationship that you do with watch people. It's just unheard of, and it's one of the greatest things. Again, one of the reasons I'm still around. Love it. It's
something special. I think that's what brings us back, going back to Andy's question, actually.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Just circling back to the Watches and Wonders event, which were the highlights for you? Like, which were your favourite pieces? Like, which impressed you?
Watch as I try and recount 45 meetings, seeing at least 10 watches per meeting for 3.5 days with no sleep. What did I like? A lot of stuff. The one that kind of stuck out the most, I think, was the twin tourbillon from maybe Cyrus. And my memory is horrendous since I got COVID a few years ago. My long COVID memory problems are notorious. I think it was that one. It was a black watch and it had a couple of tourbillons on it. And I said they did it right because Jacob and Cole love to slap a couple of tourbillons on anything they can. But when you watch it activate, it's kind of staccatoed as if it doesn't work properly. These guys did it right. So yeah, put a link in the show notes or on Instagram to tell people what I'm talking about. I loved that. And I'm trying to think, there was some good Louis Monet stuff. They did like a suitcase that had all these watches, Wonders of the World. That was good. I had to look at the Bremont stuff. Didn't really care much for it. Trying to think. There's so many. It's like a blur in my head, but definitely that one there. And I remember on the show we said, oh, this is definitely one of our favourite watches. And I can't remember which one it was. This is usually where I lean on Dave and go, Dave, start speaking. But he's not.
Which was it?
Yeah. Yeah, which one was it?
Was it the brand with the there was a brand, I can't remember what they called myself, with sapphire cases and
Oh,
Archer.
yeah.
Really, yes,
Archer.
that's
Ah,
it.
they
Yeah,
had lovely
Archer, that's
stuff.
it. Yeah.
They had ones that were, they had a name for it. It was a kind of a chroma luminescent material that would react differently to different wavelengths of light. And we've all seen it. We've
Yeah.
seen it in the watch I'm wearing today.
Yeah.
You pop a UV on that at a certain nanometer wavelength and it will light up. But these guys had a watch case that under, say for instance, normal CFL or LED lighting, it would show one way, but under
Yeah.
fluorescent lighting, it would change. It would change from like yellow to green or
To
purple
green,
to
yeah.
brown.
Yeah.
It was
really
pretty
cool.
crazy
crazy,
looking.
insane stuff going on there. By the way, we haven't mentioned the show notes, which you can find at our website, which is www.chronopassion7.com, and you'll see all these wonderful watches we're talking about.
Good idea, because I have no idea what's going on and I'll have to send pictures in once we're done. But yeah, there was a
Yeah.
lot of them, but I think there's I don't know what you guys thought. I don't know many times, I don't know if this was the first year that you went along, but it's such a hustle and bustle at Watches and Wonders, and when you leave, you are just on cloud nine, you're ecstatic, and then you get home, and then you have a hangover, because everything goes from boo to doo, and it crashes.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's like getting married or something like that. You know, the big day, the
Yeah,
big
yeah,
day's coming, the big day
it's-
comes, and the next day everyone's quiet and they're not talking about it anymore. So it takes me a while to decompress,
Hmm.
regain my
That's-
composure, what
That's
little
the
of
word
it
I
I
was
had.
going to use, actually. Yeah, decompress. Because I remember seeing it at the airport, and I didn't even notice. I just sat down and I was like, I'm knackered. And then I
You
walked
looked how I
past.
felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how is he
Yeah.
so alive? Because I was just like, oh, I didn't even see you there. And it was, I think I was sitting at the next bank of seats as well. It was just like,
Yeah.
and then I looked up Rob Corder. There was like 15 people, all
Yeah.
watch people were there, and I hadn't even noticed.
It's-
Yeah, and it was just weird. Yeah.
Yeah, complete fatigue. There's a mutual friend of ours, Philo, and he caught me and Palm walking to the bus, and he got a picture of us, and we
Yeah,
looked
he was
so
broken.
miserable, broken. But that was our first time at
That
Watches and
was-
Wonders,
yeah.
so you know.
That was Philo's first time too, and should probably kind of mention we're not like strangers to each other. We all work together on lots of different projects. Scottish Watches, you guys help out dramatically with the website, Instagram, helping out with this, that, and the other. And Philo's been part probably about 5 years plus. He was one of the first listeners to the show. And again, it kind of shows that camaraderie between people. You
Yeah.
guys are doing your own podcast. I've said you guys are going to come on to Scottish Watches. It's reciprocal. We come on and we chat to you guys. And we're all in WhatsApp groups together. But you're right. That was Philo's first event. And I tried to tell him ahead of time what it would be like. I did my best, but he was a
Yeah.
broken man by the time he left.
Yeah, we saw him
Yeah.
in the lounge, and then he sat down and he kind of. You must see this a lot with people at the end of the event. They're kind of looking into space. Like, okay, where have I just been? And I think the watches go round and round in your head. You kind of think,
Mhm.
yeah, I saw that one, and then I saw that. And then you're trying to hold a conversation with someone as well. No one's being rude. They're just kind of like, there's so much
You just destroyed.
information whirring around in their mind that it's just impossible.
There's a lot of FOMO as well, especially people who have gone for the first time, because they're constantly saying and thinking, what have I missed? Have I missed the latest and the greatest watch? And they've probably seen everything they wanted to, but there
Yeah.
is maybe that Elang and Zona in the corner that they didn't get to see, or maybe Cartier have got something cool
Cartier
that they
was
didn't
probably
think
one,
of
yeah.
until they're on the plane back home. But no, it's a great experience, and like I say all the time to anybody that asks, get out there. It's all very well and good watching YouTube videos and reading blogs and being on Instagram, but even going to an event at your local boutique where you meet other people, you can chat to folks that are into watches, and then make it one of your goals, if you can, to go to Watches and Wonders or Geneva Watch Days, which is free entry, or going across to Dubai Watch Week. One of the guys who is an avid listener to our show got in touch a couple of years ago. He went, not last year, but it was coming up 3 years ago now, a guy called Curtis, 17-year-old kid at the time. And he heard me, Dave, Barbara Palumbo, and Hind Siddiqui talking about the upcoming Dubai Watch Week in 2021. And he decided at age 17 to buy a return ticket to Dubai, to sort out a hotel, and to go. Now,
Wow.
that is taking a lot on at that age, going across the world from England. And he went over there and he had the best time ever. So as soon as they announced their next dates, he was there. And we met up with him. We've had him on the show as a guest because it was a great story. And the folks at Siddiqui's, the people that actually put the event on, of all the millionaires and billionaires and creators and all the rest of it, that was one story that stuck out to them because they put Dubai Watch Week on as a free event. They don't charge people, they don't charge brands, and they bring brands along they don't sell. So they are competing with themselves. They do it for the good of the community. And if anybody can get out there, I fully recommend it. The tickets last year for the plane was £550 return from Scotland. And as I say, the event is free. So if you can get out there, do it. And one of the big things that I say to try and equate it in people's minds is, if you're into football and you go to football matches, away matches, you've got a season ticket, you buy the strips, you pay for the BT Sport, how much does that cost per year for your hobby? Well, why don't you go across to Geneva, spend a couple £100 on a plane ticket, get an Airbnb, go to Geneva Watch Days, meet up with Waco, meet Robert from Fratello, go and meet Max Busser, go and meet the guys from Moser, go around all these things and have a great time. Probably cost you a lot less than travelling around Europe for the Euros or going to the Olympics.
True, very true. Dubai Watch Week's a bit of a sore subject for me because I was ready to go and I had it all sorted out. And my brother-in-law lives in Dubai, and we were staying with him. And we got the call, our building work's overrun. There's nowhere for you to stay, so I had to cancel. So this is literally the week before. So the house is fine now. It's all the building work has now been completed, and we did go and see him again. But that was just like, can you imagine just a week before? It's like, oh no,
You're all hyped
you
up
can
for it.
literally. I've heard actually from your show as well that people are literally just walking around more freely than they would at Watches and Wonders and any other show. You just probably bump into someone in a coffee shop or something, and you can strike up a conversation.
It was 2021, the year that I went to my first Dubai Watch Week, and you got to remember this was just before Omicron came out, so we're still kind of in the pandemic. We'd hoped to get out of it, and then it came back and reared its ugly head. And to get out of the country and go to a place where they didn't require you to wear masks because you were out and it was hot and it was fantastic. It was the end of the year and it was sunny. It was better than the UK. And to walk around, I remember walking past the CEO of AP, and I'm like, this guy's just walking on his own some. And I stopped him and I said that I really enjoyed the presentation because, again, they put on presentations, workshops and talks, and it was just mind-blowing. And the way that people acted out there, it was completely different from the UK because, again, the weather was better. The guys at Dubai Watch Week, they build that area from the ground up. It is literally an empty bit of concrete at the start of the week. They build a Rolex boutique, they build an AP boutique, they build a Chanel boutique, a Bulgari boutique. They've got all these things created for that week alone. So it shows you how much money is out in that area of the world. But they do this again for the benefit of us guys. And all we have to do is get there. As I say, get an Airbnb, get something from booking.com and spend the week there. And then go exploring, go to the desert, go down to the Palm, whatever it is you want to do. One of the other guys that's to do with Scottish Watches, Ralph, he's been another great member of the team for as long as I can remember. He stays out there. And when we went across a couple of years ago, he acted like our unofficial tour guide. He took us out in his car and showed us the sights and all the rest of it. And then we went out for food with some collectors. So yeah, get out there. It's a great hobby. It can be really expensive if you don't know how to curtail your spending. But like we said at the beginning, jump on eBay, look at some second-hand stuff from the 70s, the 80s, pick up a pocket watch, take it apart, learn some stuff. It doesn't all have to be about watching things on a little screen. You can really get hands-on, or you can go to a local launch at a boutique, pop into town, go to your multi-brands, your mono-brand boutiques, chat to the people in there, find out if they've got an event, a product launch, if they're doing something. There's the reason we're recording today is tomorrow. Montblanc are coming up to Scotland. And because we do work with them, and obviously we ended up in one of their live webinars this year. Can you believe it? Don't know why they trusted us. Yeah, it was insane. They invited us, me and Dave, to collaborate on their live webinar from Watches and Wonders that went out to all their customers and retailers across the world. And they trusted us not to say the F word. Couldn't believe it. But that was a great show. We recorded it, turned it into a podcast. We were very careful, kept biting our lip. But we're going to meet those guys because we're up in Scotland and we're going to go and see them across in Edinburgh tomorrow. Yeah, just get out there. Red Bar, if there's a local chapter, if you don't know what Red Bar is, sorry, it's a watch club across the world, chapters in local areas, the UK, Scotland, England, further afield. I think they've got them in most countries in the world. And the last time I spoke to Kathleen that runs it, she said they didn't have one in Antarctica, but if somebody wanted to start one, she'd love to have a chapter out there. So yeah, watch clubs are another cool thing to get involved in.
Oh yeah, Andy heads up
100%.
Red
Yeah, I
Bar
do
in Barcelona.
Barcelona,
So, yeah, so he's the one who sorts all the events out. So this collab watch with Formex, I think you covered it off in the wristwatch check, but was there anything else you want to show off?
I would say have a look at if you don't care about anything else, have a look at the first 2 minutes of the video that I hit the send button on literally 10 minutes before we started speaking tonight.
Yeah, I'll
to
add
the point
that to
where I
the,
delayed things because the camera that I'm using to speak to you guys on was in a different area because it was set up to record the video clips that went in the video today. So it's a total static electricity in my mind at the moment about the watch. Limited to 100 pieces. I'm not sure how many, if any, will still be available. I believe it is £750 UK on the bracelet, including taxes, customs and delivery, because Formex are really good about all that kind of stuff. Available from their website. They take care of it because they've been selling watches online for so many years. We don't want anything to do with the logistics. They're the experts. And that is pretty much it. Have a look at the video and you'll see it in action.
Okay, we'll add that in the description and in the show notes. Talking of Moser, there's a rumor that you did a collab, but what's the story behind this then?
We didn't do a collab, although we were going to do a kind of joke collab. So I'll give you the short version, and I get asked everywhere I wear this bloody watch. Sometimes I like leaving it in the house so I can actually get peace and quiet when I'm out and about. But way back when, early 2000, it was before the pandemic actually, I think it was about January time, Moser brought out the Streamliner chrono, and we got in touch with Ed and said, hey, would you like to come on the show and chat about the new release? And bear in mind, this would have been maybe just under a year or around about a year since the podcast had been going. It'd been growing, but still, we weren't who we are today. People didn't know of us. And he said, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. So we got it scheduled. And the day that he scheduled it for was launch day. I'm thinking, that is insane. That is the busiest day ever for the guy that is the CEO of the company to be doing a podcast, but he did. So totally indebted for that. He came on the show and we immediately hit it off because he'd been making videos promoting the brand where he had been taking a piss out of himself. He was taking a piss out of Patek with the pass it on to the next generation. He was dressed like a beach bum in the back of a Volkswagen camper out partying, and it was saying, you know, I really want to give my son like this, my watch, are you mad? So he was on our level with humour. We did the show, it was great. And then after we stopped recording, we kind of continued the conversation as we normally do. We don't just hang up and disappear. And we had the idea of doing an April Fool's joke because in 2019 we did one on Instagram. It was quite funny. And the idea we struck upon was to do a watch with, well, a Moser watch with the Scottish Solitaire on the dial and say, yeah, we're going to do this. It's going to be a funny watch, blah, blah, blah. So that was a talking stage in January, February. They were doing stuff in the background. I just left it to them. But then with the pandemic, and everything kind of stopped. Nobody was making April Fool's joke during the pandemic in 2020. And then it kind of carried on. We did this, we did that. We forgot all about it. And it was, I think it started last year, that he came across the dial that they got made for the watch. And I thought, right, okay. It's a bit late now to do a joke because no one's going to remember something we said 4 years ago. And my idea was, instead of just ditching the dial or letting it go to waste, well, why don't we just pop it in a watch and I'll just have that instead of doing a joke. You know, I'll make a real watch out of it. So end of last year, went across to do a tour of the Moser factory, their museum, which again, if anyone has the opportunity and are over in that neck of the woods in Schaffhausen, something to do. The museum is incredible. I'm not a museum type of guy. The only old thing I like is Dave, and half the time I don't like him. But we went round there and we saw the best of stuff. Walked into Mr. Moser's office, which has been recreated or kept the way it was with him, and it looked like a vintage steampunk version of my place. So you've got a desk, you had a typewriter, you had a lamp over in the corner, there was a camera and a tripod. It was one of those box brownie style cameras with the concertina thing. There was a telescope, there was a bookcase, and I'm thinking, this is the vintage equivalent of what I do. So we went round there, we went to the factory. Moser are one of the only companies in the world that make their own hairsprings. A lot of people pretend they do, they genuinely do. They make a lot of the escapement and balance wheel technology for different brands that they're not allowed to say who, but if you look at the pictures of them, you can tell. and they work with MB&F, and they're very open. MB&F are like, yeah, tell everybody, you're one of our friends, tell everybody what you do for us. And it was at the end of that I finally got the Scottish watches. I call it the Memeliner, not the Streamliner, because it was a joke watch. But I've had that since the end of last year. And there are two watches that I wear the most at the moment. And it's the Memeliner and it's my Ulysse Nardin Freak X, which I picked up a few months ago when I was over at the Geneva Motor Show. So those are my two main ones. And I will show you guys, no pictures in the show notes and stuff of the Moser. But it's based upon the Streamliner that everybody knows, the original one, not the one with the ghosted logo. But the bit that's ghosted on this is the Saltire. So if you look at it kind of straight on, you don't really notice anything as amiss.
It's like a blue dial, yeah.
Like a blue
Just
dial.
a blue dial. But when it moves to the side or it's on the wrist, you get this flash across because there's a satin effect Saltire. Same colour of blue, but it catches the light and makes it brighter, whereas the rest of the dial is flat. It's obviously got the crazy luminous blocks in the hand, and it's got that genuine in-house movement in the back. But the best thing about it, apart from the case shape that's completely unique to Moser, is the bracelet. It articulates like an armadillo. It's almost like H.R. Geiger has had a hand in designing this thing. The way that it moves around like a serpent, like the mother.
It reminds me of a
Alien and
Predator for some
Aliens.
reason. Predator or something. Yeah, something like that. It's just,
Predator, Terminator 3, Transformers 2, where the girl kind of pops her tongue out. It's something like that. I don't know how they've done it. The way they've polished it, the way it reacts to light is just absolutely incredible. I treat this one better than a gold watch. I'm so scared of damaging the surface to it. But it's a fantastic watch, great movement. And the guys there, I've said it before in this, I've said it a million times, they are so down to earth for being at the top of their game. We recently went down to Silverstone for the Formula One with Edward and the team, and we got to do a tour of Alpine's Formula One factory. We got to speak to the creators, the designers, the testers. We were in the rooms you're not supposed to be in. We were finding out how the steering wheels are made, how they're calibrated to each driver, the amount of force used for the clutch and the buttons. Yeah, it was just a really good experience. And those guys, as I say, since day one, we were nobodies. We were a podcast from Scotland that nobody knew about or cared about. And they came onto our show on their busiest day. So I've never let that go. And it's the people that help you in the way up that you remember. And they've always been there behind the scenes, as have most. There's not been any. There's maybe 5 brands that are on my shit list that I will not deal with because they've lied, they've bullshitted, tried to do something nefarious. But considering how many watch companies there are, and there are more every single day appearing out of the woodwork, new companies, revitalised companies, reborn companies, considering there's only 5 that I absolutely detest, that's pretty good odds.
It's good going, yeah.
It's not bad, yeah. The friendly disposition you have.
Oh, I thank you. I thought you were going to ask me to name all the 5 brands, and I was going to say check it on OnlyFans if you want that link.
No, I won't ask you that. I know you don't want to put people down. That's not your thing. Right, okay. Talking of aliens, we might take a screenshot of Rikki in his room because the Ben Rousseau clock in the background. Now, I saw this.
That's crazy.
The British Watchmakers Day, and I spoke to him. He was in that area with all the big hitters, but I think his stall wasn't getting that much attention. But I did speak to him, and I got his card and everything. I never did follow up on that. I heard the show as well that you did with him. That's something else. I mean, he did explain how it worked. I'm guessing seconds, minutes, and then out. Yeah, it works its way in. But that's quite a stunning watch, and it does look like the alien transmitter you were talking about earlier on. So.
It looks like you're right. It looks like the countdown Predator used to blow shit up.
There's a lot of Predator in the show, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of Predators, and Dave's not even on it. So, I've got to be careful with my jokes. Really got to be careful with my jokes these days because people might hear this. No, Ben Rousseau, met him. I actually spoke to him before Watchmakers Day, and he said, look, I know it's not a watch, but guys that like watches, they like mechanisms, they like clocks, they might have a man cave, they might have something in their garage or something like that. And I said, cool, I'll catch up with Watchmakers Day. Went and had a chat and had a look at it and thought, yeah, that's really good. Send us one. And what we'll do is we'll have a chat about it. We'll see how it goes. And he sent the thing. And once he sent it and I saw exactly what was involved, I thought, you know what, we need to do a show with this guy. So it arrived, I unpacked it, and it was a bit like, I don't know, you buy a new TV and you look at it and you go, it's only a few extra £100 to get the bigger size And before you know it, you've got a 65-inch TV getting delivered and you're trying to manhandle the thing into position. Just doesn't work. This is massive. I think it's about a metre, maybe slightly under in size. It's quite wide, it's substantial. The amount of technology that's inside it, it's not just like an Arduino or something like that. The guy has custom designed everything. The video that he sent me showing you how it's put together, it's all CNC laser cut. Here in the UK, it's all local stuff. Nothing is off the shelf. And the design ingenuity he's put into these things is just mind-blowing. So he came on the show and I thought, how long can we string this out, chatting to a guy about making clocks? Wow. He's done everything. A little bit like myself, he was involved in the Gumball 3000. He was involved with Max Power magazine. Loads and loads of things that actually merged perfectly well with my history, because I used to work for Max Power magazine back in the day. And it was just a great conversation. And before you know it, a little bit like probably you guys find when you're doing shows, you're looking and it's 5 minutes in, you look again and you're at the hour mark. Time evaporated. I hoped it would stand still, but it just disappeared. So we had a great show with him, and we're going to have to bring him back in because we didn't scratch the surface. And that's another thing that I find with different guests that you bring on. You just get down a rabbit hole and it's engaging and interesting, and before you know it, it's done. We had another great couple of guests, was episode 300. We spoke to and brought on to the show Gerald Genta's wife and daughter. And I thought it was a great idea in my head, right? But not all my ideas are great.
Yeah. No, I think
I recorded the show and I thought, this is good. This is really going well. There's some golden nuggets in here. There was a point where they were bickering, like a mother and daughter would bicker. They were talking about Gerald Genta at the dinner table, scribbling stuff as his daughter's trying to show her drawings and stuff like that. And we put the show out on the eve of episode 300, and I was shitting bricks thinking, what happens if nobody cares? What if they say, who cares about somebody's family? We're interested in the guy himself. And it was the most well-received show I think we've ever done. And again, we had to do it a second episode to find out more. And just getting inside the mind of somebody. And Evelyn, by herself, is just such an incredible person. And obviously the daughter as well, Alexia. It was just a great show. And it turns out, behind the scenes, everybody talks about Gerald Genta. He would have been nobody without his wife there, because she was the brains when it came to the business. He was the brains when it came to creativity. And you need both of those things to be successful. How many amazing guitarists or singers have you heard that haven't got the business acumen to get out there in front of people, and they just get left by the wayside? So it's things like that. And again, the reason I'm bringing that up is we didn't have time to go through all the questions and get the stories. We had to bring them on for a second episode. So I think I'm going to have to bring you guys onto my show for a second episode so we can chat about what you guys have been up to.
Why not?
Sounds
Let's
awesome.
do that. Yeah.
Excellent.
Look forward to it. So talking of the hour mark, I think we've hit it. But Andy, is there anything you want to close on before we have to leave Rikki?
Gosh, I think Rikki summed it up perfectly. The first show is getting to know each other a little bit, build a bit of a rapport. And then the second one is when you really get into the itty-gritty, right? And go deeper down that rabbit hole. So I think we need to maybe save that for the next one. Given that we're approaching that hour mark, from my side, I'd just personally like to thank you, Rikki, for joining us today. It's been a huge pleasure. We'll make sure to get every single piece you've talked about, especially the new Formex. A huge congratulations, by the way, on that collaboration, which on the day of recording, that has been launched. So
special show.
It might be a bit late by the time we drop the show. As you say, we're probably already off the shelf, but still check it out. It's an amazing collaboration. All the show notes will be there. And yeah, just a big thank you from my side. And I guess, is it time for my classic sign off? Anything more to add?
If you want.
Yeah.
If you want.
So,
it's up to you.
If I want.
It's your show.
I guess. I don't know if I can be asked doing a sign off. No, I'm joking. That is adios and hasta luego from Barcelona. Don't forget to check out the show notes on www.chronopassion7, as in the number 7.com. You can check out Instagram as well. The images will be on there. But for the best possible audio visual experience, it is our new platform, our new website. It will give you the best possible experience, especially on such a show as this one. So I will sign off for this week and hand over to Pam.
Thank you all so much for listening. And for me, this was quite a special show because I've always admired Rikki and what he does with Scottish watches, and Dave also. And the funny thing I did notice in this show was I'm normally listening and laughing away to myself, but you're actually talking and I'm laughing away in your hair, which is quite bizarre. But
Oh, you're
there you
laughing
go.
in my face. Fair enough.
Well, yeah, laughing
Usually
everywhere.
people laugh behind my back. That's fine. We know.
Well, we'll
where we
wait till
stand
you're
now.
out the room then, yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
no, thank you all. And as Andy said, check out the show notes. As Andy says, farewell from Barcelona. Rikki says goodbye from Glasgow. From London, it's to the pip and laters. And we'll see you and you'll hear us in the next one.